Welcome to the Financial Flossing Podcast with Ross Brannan, guiding dental professionals to a brighter future. Ross Brannan is a financial advisor who knows it's not just about your teeth. He helps dental practice owners protect and maximize today's cash flow to plan for tomorrow's cash needs. Find him at rossbrannan.com. On the show, he brings together experts to help dental professionals looking to make smart money decisions to grow their income, turn their retirement goals into reality, and improve their lives. And now, here's your host, Ross Brannan.
Welcome to the show. Today we have Alexis Gallati. Alexis is an EA with Cerebral Tax Advisors. She started this firm 10 years ago, and she does tax strategy for medical professionals through education and tax planning and compliance. Alexis, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Ross. I'm excited to be here.
Well, as I told you offline, I love talking to tax people because I find it to be a very fascinating conversation. Tell us a little about you and Cerebral Tax Advisors and why you're different, because you are, based on what I've talked to you about so far.
Yeah, great. So here at Cerebral, we are 100% virtual. We have clients in over 40 states, and we primarily focus on tax planning and educating our clients on the available strategies to them. So what we do is we start with taking our client's situation, and I design a tax plan that gets them tax efficient. So I'm looking at entity, I'm looking at retirement, deductions and credits, and basically any other strategies that would work towards their goals. And then our clients move into their tax maintenance packages. And those maintenance packages include all of their tax services for the year. So their tax prep for their personal tax return and the business tax return, so that annual tax preparation, quarterly estimated tax calculations, continued proactive planning. So we have regularly scheduled meetings during the year, which is very different from a lot of other firms. We're very proactive with our clients. We want to know what's going on in your situation. So then that way we can make sure you're staying up to date on your options and we can implement strategies, et cetera. Or we also go and put your business onto QuickBooks Online if it's not already there, and the subscription's included. And so that allows us to review your books 3 times a year. So right before those 2 planning meetings, and then at tax time. We also include audit protection. So we back up all of our work. All the strategies we use are court tested, IRS approved. I don't put anything on a tax return we don't feel comfortable defending in an audit. Happy to play in the gray areas, but you got to feel comfortable defending it.
Well, and let's step back for a second, because you used a key word that might be a little new to some people. You said tax planning. So let's define some terms for people. So to our listeners out there, when we use the word compliance, that means doing your tax return. But when we use the word tax planning, Alexis, what does that mean?
Yeah, that means looking at where you're making your money and how you're making your money, what assets you currently have, what plans you have coming down the road, and trying to shift your money in such a way that will allow you to take more deductions or basically keep more of what you earn while trying to achieve those goals. So we're looking at things like starting a retirement plan, like you, let's say, have your own business, or hiring your kids, all those things that have to happen during the year before you actually file your return. So then that way you can take advantage of it, because the majority of the strategies you do have to be done during the current year if you wanted to count for that year.
Yeah, I think the only thing that you could go retroactive would either be solar or a retirement plan before your taxes are filed. So what's interesting is you are a new breed of accounting professional, in that I would argue that majority of tax professionals, CPAs, EAs, are what I call history reporters. They just put numbers in boxes, and that's not bad. It's just most people don't realize that's what they are. And what you're doing is you're getting out in front of the end of the year. You're not talking to your clients on December 15th. You're talking to them multiple times a year, figuring out, okay, what does this year look like? Are you W-2? Do you have an S corp? Are you 1099? What strategies are available that we could use to reduce your tax liability this year? The client may or may not decide to use them depending on their personal preferences. And then you begin to implement that, and they go from, instead of making $400,000 in my example here, they might, for tax purposes, only be making $200,000. And I like to say, and I think you'll agree with me, the highest rate of return we're ever going to get is a dollar taken back from the IRS, legally, of course.
Yeah.
So what happened for you to see the light, shall I say, and become a tax planner versus just a compliance person?
Yeah. Well, I saw the light when my husband was finishing up his residency. So, at Cerebral.
And no, so your husband is a neurosurgeon. And for those of you who don't know, that's not a minimum wage profession. They're typically fairly well paid, and they should be because they go to school for about 20 years. And it's a pretty important job. So you got thrust in the highest tax bracket pretty quickly. And then you were like, all right, I got to figure something out.
Yeah, it was actually a couple of years before he finished up his residency. I saw the writing on the wall and knew I needed to find out why the Warren Buffetts and the Bill Gates of the world were at that 15% bracket or sometimes zero. And I wasn't. And plus two, we were living in New York State. So it was a high.
So you're getting state and city taxes, because now you don't have state taxes where you're at in Tennessee. So, but you were getting city and state up in New York. Geez.
So we were in New York City. We were actually in Rochester, New York. So we didn't luckily have New York City tax, but we still had the high state tax and high cost of living. And that's why we moved that's where I'm from, is Knoxville, Tennessee now, because I wanted to get out of a high income tax state. So I was like, where can I go on the East Coast that doesn't have state income tax? And we landed in Tennessee.
So you learned from personal experience, and because of that, you practice what you preach. You eat your own cooking. So you're not suggesting a client do a strategy that you're not doing. If you're proposing it and it applies to you, you're doing it. And people appreciate that, don't they?
They do, yes. And there are some strategies, like my husband and I, for example, don't have any rental properties, but I have a lot of experience when it comes to recommending strategies in terms of real estate. And so and I have a lot of clients that do it as well. So it's been really great to learn a bit of aspect of it and be able to help implement those strategies and be like, oh, hey, now when my husband and I are ready, because right now we're trying to pay off our house first, then I'm going to be in a really great spot for implementing those strategies myself.
That's fantastic. So when a client discovers you, because that's really what it is. They kind of discover you and they realize, holy cow, this is amazing. What is their initial reaction? Because your engagement, like if you go to the traditional CPA, hey, I need you to do my taxes. Okay, it's going to be $500 or whatever it is. That is nothing like what working with you is like. First of all, you cost a lot more because you're worth a lot more. You provide tremendous value. By the way, listeners, if I could save you $100 in taxes, would that be worth paying $10 in fees for that? Absolutely. So, hey, if I saved you $100,000 in taxes, would that be worth paying $10,000? Absolutely, all day long. But when people realize, they come and sit with you and they realize that you're different and the way you structure everything is different, what is that experience like? I mean, what's their perspective?
Yeah. So most of the time when someone comes to me, they're used to kind of what you mentioned before, that reactive sort of advice. They're just getting their tax return done. And so it can be a little bit of a sticker shock sometimes, but that's why we do provide a 2x guarantee on the planning of our returns or the investment of our returns. So what that means is if you spend $10,000 on our tax planning fee, then we're going to guarantee a minimum $20,000 per year in tax, or you get the plan for free. So,
home run, take that deal all day long. And I'm going to guess you probably supersede the 2x guarantee more often than not.
Yeah. Yes, all the time, actually. So I'm very conservative. I don't like to promise you the moon and get you nothing. So
under promise, over deliver.
Over deliver. Yeah, you got it. Yep.
That's brilliant. That's fantastic. I mean, people don't realize this. I talk to CPAs a lot, and I know some really smart CPAs, and very few are actually doing what you're doing. planning. Some people, they can come up with sophisticated strategies, but they're not actively planning with every client. So let's talk a little bit about, as much as you're comfortable talking about, like, what does it cost to work with you? I mean, realize as we say that, if it costs me $1, you're going to save me $2. So it's a win-win all the way. But what's the process like? What's the cost like? Talk about that for a minute.
Yes, yeah. So our tax plan design fees start at $10,000 and increase with complexity. But again, we do have that 2x guarantee.
Yeah. And so let me just stop right there, because there's someone listening right now who's like choking on a drink or a food when they hear that. Okay, it's worth every penny and then some. She will save you so much money, it's ridiculous.
And the one big difference between Cerebral and other firms, even other firms that do tax planning, is that we baby our clients. We are white glove. So when we say, hey, go out and hire your kids, we are going to shepherd you through the entire process. We are going to make sure it's done properly. We are going to do as much as possible for you as well. So then that way you're able to spend more time doing what you love, and we're able to make sure it's being done properly as well.
And well, that's a big deal, because even something as simple as paying your kids needs to be done in the right timing, order, and sequencing. So it matters. You can't just cut them a check. I mean, technically you can. Will it pass an audit if you do that? Probably not, but you can. And you go out there and do homework. So it's like, hey, you're recommending a 401k or a cash balance plan or a simple IRA or a SEP. You're not just blankly saying, go find someone. You've built strategic alliances with people who have passed your vetting, who will take care of your clients.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. So all the providers that we use, if we do any third-party referrals, we don't sell any products. We don't get any kickbacks as well. So everything is very educational and for our client's best interest. And if a client decides not to do a strategy, that's completely fine. We just want to make sure that you understand the strategy, that you're educated, and that we are actually bringing new ideas to the table.
Well, I think it's really important for people to understand the ethical stance you've taken on that is really a big deal. You're not conflicted out. You're not telling somebody to go do XYZ strategy because you have a financial incentive to do so. You're saying, hey, this is a strategy that works. This is a provider of that strategy that we know does well. You're a free person, it's a free country, decide what you want to do. If you do it, here's what happens.
Exactly. Yep. And we, when it comes to the people we work with, we also try to, instead of taking commissions or any sort of kickbacks, we request preferential pricing for our clients. So then that way they're saving, yes, they're paying us something, but then they know that they're saving with our preferred vendors as well. But we're happy to work with whomever they want to work with. They're never handcuffed to who we recommend.
Right. But most people don't have somebody, so you're taking them through that process. So
sure.
I invest in working with you X amount of dollars. What does the process look like after the initial investment?
Yeah. So once we've designed that plan, we'll start implementing the strategies. And that process just depends on the strategies and the time commitment, et cetera. But most of the time we're able to do the strategy implementation within 2 or 3 months of us actually finishing the plan. And then by that point, our clients are in their maintenance packages. And that again includes, I try to do everything for a flat fee. And so that starts at $699 a month. And again, increases with complexity depending upon if you have a business or if you don't, if you want VIP sort of services. And so basically we, depending on the time of year, if we need to we're doing mid-year planning, which is May, June timeframe, or year-end planning, October, November. We don't charge extra for additional questions, meetings, emails. The only things that are more a la carte is if, like, let's say we say, hey, we notice that there's an opportunity for you to save money if we amend your tax return, your prior year return. So there'll be an extra charge on that, but we're not going to recommend it unless there's a good cost benefit. You're going to be saving a lot more from that savings than you would with the amended return.
And this is a dental podcast. It's called Financial Flossing, obviously. So
yeah,
the vast majority of people are dentists, and you're kind of bread and butter market is medical professionals. I mean, so you have a lot of dental clients. So talk about some of the challenges that dentists have.
Sure. Interestingly enough, a lot of times when dentists come to me, they're not doing a lot of the basic strategies. And a lot of people will just kind of, always look for the big things, like, oh, maybe I can start like a captive company because I can do that, or I can, they're just looking for flash, basically.
They go for those really complex things that probably don't apply to them, but they're like, hey, it sounds cool, so let's do that. I saw it on the internet.
Exactly. So, what I like to do with them first is take them back to basics and be like, okay, let's look at your entity. Like, are you just a sole proprietorship or partnership? Like, can you be an S Corp, or maybe even a C Corp is the right answer, depending upon the state that you're in. Like in Tennessee, S Corps are not desirable because they're not recognized. And so they don't help. You lose all of your federal benefit. And then also too, things like, like I've mentioned before, hiring your kids, or doing the Augusta rule, or, home office, mileage, etc. Just educating and on those basic deductions, trying to take as many personal expenses to be pre-tax deductions through your business as legally as possible.
And the reality is, and we don't need to get into it on this podcast, but the reality is, for someone who's making so much money, those strategies maybe don't move the needle that much. There are other strategies, more complex strategies that you work on and you help clients implement, where you told me a story offline where you helped a client save $3 million in taxes. And I don't know many people doing that. So you're familiar with the advanced strategies to bring them into play when they are appropriate.
Yeah, so that particular strategy was around an office building that was being sold, and so able to save tax on that, on the sale of that office building.
Yeah, and so you're getting in the weeds with the clients, handling them with white gloves, and you're remote. You're in Tennessee, but your whole firm is remote, so it doesn't matter if they live in Hawaii, Alaska, Florida, New York, Maine, California. You can help them because you guys are a virtual firm doing everything with these clients, no matter where they are.
Yes, before I started Cerebral in 2014, I was working for local and regional CPA firms, depending upon my graduate work or my husband's medical school and residency, et cetera. And so I actually specialized in multi-state returns. Because I'd moved around so much, I had a really great understanding of a lot of different states. So it was very natural for me to start a completely virtual firm. And plus two is well before all the COVID stuff hit. So we were on the cutting edge, I guess.
There you go. Talk a little bit about the name of your firm, Cerebral Tax Advisors. That's a unique name. Talk about where'd that come from?
Actually, my husband, I can't take credit for it. So we were just talking about like different names, and I wanted to do something that just, so many CPA firm names or this accounting firm names are just so boring. It's always someone's like last name, like such and such associates or something. And I wanted something that really stood on its own. And so with my husband being a neurosurgeon and my dad being a neurologist, Cerebral just kind of worked well because it encompasses not only physicians, but also tax advisors and accountants. We are all very cerebral thinking. So it fit.
That's fantastic. Now, if someone is intrigued by you, and our listeners should be, and they want to work with you or at least have a conversation with you, how would they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so we actually have a site that's dedicated to financial flossing. So if you go to www.cerebraltaxadvisors.com/FF, so financial, FF, then you can find more information about Cerebral and some free items that you can check out. So I have a end of year tax planning list, just to make sure that, for your 2023 tax return, you can, some ideas to see if you can implement them. That's free, as well as the physician expense bonus tracker. So it has a lot of different expenses that are related to physicians and dentists that you'll be able to take a look at to make sure you're taking advantage of those. as well as a link to my book, Advanced Tax Planning for Medical Professionals. And that's really a brain dump of all these different strategies and just wanting to make sure you're introduced to them and you can see if they apply to you and then go from there. We also have a link to Cerebral Wealth Academy, which is for those that want to do their own DIY tax planning. And if you have a side
like a
gig,
DIY tax planning website?
Yeah. So it's a course
Okay.
for those. So it's Cerebral Wealth Academy. And if you have a side gig or you do locum tenens or you have your own business, this will really help set you up for success when choosing an entity, retirement, deductions, etc. There's case studies, there's templates, there's resources. It's really great.
But let me interrupt you. I didn't even know about this Wealth Academy thing. And it's academy.cerebraltaxadvisors.com. This is awesome. This is fantastic.
Yeah, that direct link is cerebralwealthacademy.com.
Okay, sorry. Didn't mean to mess that up.
You're fine.
And then, of course, the book, which just came out this year. This is fantastic. Grab it on Amazon.
And then if you're looking for more of the white glove hand-holding, you're like, Alexis, this is too much. Like, I need someone to help me. Then Cerebral Tax Advisors, there's a link on there for you to schedule a free discovery session with me to see if we're the right fit.
This is fantastic. This is great resources for anyone who's interested. I think everyone should have a conversation with you if their CPA isn't doing tax planning, and most of them aren't. Some of them are, but most of them aren't. And then you've got resources of the Wealth Academy if you're a DIY, although I would not recommend a DIY with this type of stuff. And in the book, which is great. I really think people should be reaching out and scheduling a call with you. This would make a ton of sense. And one of the things that's really cool is obviously your husband's a physician. The vast majority of physicians are W-2 employees because they're employees of the hospital. Well, unfortunately, as most people know, the W-2 is the worst way to get paid in this country. As a dental practice owner, you're a small business, and there are so many more planning opportunities when you own a business than if you're just a high income W-2 employee. So just realize when you see those contracts on ESPN for those athletes, just realize they're all getting paid W-2. So they're taking on the taking it on the chin for all their taxes, and they're taxed in every state they play in. But anyway, so go on the website. Tell us the website one more time.
Sure. It's cerebraltaxadvisors.com/FF.
Okay, great. Schedule a time to talk to Alexis. She is a unicorn in the tax world. You will not find many people like her. Alexis, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much, Ross. It was really great. I appreciate it.
You've been listening to the Financial Flossing Podcast with Ross Brannon.
This has been another episode of Financial Flossing with Ross Brannon, guiding dental professionals to a brighter future. If you liked what you heard, consider subscribing wherever you listen to podcasts. For more on Ross Brannon, visit rossbrannon.com.
Ross Brannon is a registered representative, Coastal Equities, Inc., and investment advisory representative, Coastal Investment Advisors, Inc. Investment advisory services are offered through Coastal Investment Advisors, Inc., and securities are offered through Coastal Equities, Inc. Member FINRA, SIPC, 1201 North Orange Street, Suite 729, Wilmington, Delaware, 19801.